Dolls, it's me, Cora. Welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a review and a demo of the NARS All Day Luminous Weightless Foundation. I am super excited about this foundation. My favorite foundation, as you guys know, is the Alameda Skin Base. However, this is a little bit hard to come by in the States now. I know that I can order it through the Alameda site, but it's not something that's readily available. And I want to have a foundation that if I run out, I can just go to the store and buy it and it's not a big deal. And I also want to be able to recommend something new to you guys. And since this new NARS foundation was coming out, I thought I'd try it, and I am so happy that I love it because I don't always have a really great track record with new foundations. I tend to be very picky and very specific about what I like, and sometimes it's an intangible thing to explain. I will try my very best to explain why I love this foundation so very, very much. When I picked up this foundation, I also picked up the Light Reflecting Pressed Powder, the Crystal Powder. So I wanted to review these together since I've been using them together for about the last week and a half just to demo it and try it out. I've also tried this with other powders as well, and we'll get to that when we get to the review, but I just wanted to let you know I'll be reviewing both of these today. So this is a $48 foundation, so we're not going to mince words here. It's a very expensive foundation, being almost $50. When I am looking at a product that costs as much as $50 for a foundation, I have pretty high expectations. I want it to feel nice on the skin in terms of it feeling comfortable. I want it to not feel greasy or gross. I don't want it to make my skin look dry at the same time. I don't want it to be overly matte. I do want it to have good coverage. I want to find a good color match in just one shade rather than having to mix colors because that's a pain in the butt. I don't want it to have any weird fragrance. I just want it to be as perfect as humanly possible for, you know, $50. I'm happy to say that this delivers on all of those. This comes in 20 shades, so you have a really good chance of finding a shade that is going to match you. There's a lower chance that you are going to have to mix colors, although I will say if you do have to mix colors, it's still worth it because the texture and everything is so great with this one, but yeah, that would be kind of a pain. This one comes with a pump, which a lot of the NARS foundations do not come with a pump. They usually make you pay an extra $8 for the pump. So I'm pretty excited about that, and if you look at it that way, it's not that far off from the Sheer Glow in terms of the price. This is an oil-free foundation, so for those of you with oily skin or if you break out easily, this is a really great foundation for you. This one has a medium to full coverage, which is the perfect kind of foundation for me because I like to be able to manipulate it down to like a medium coverage by applying it very, very sheerly and maybe even thinning it out with like Fix Plus or a wet sponge or whatever. But I also like being able to get full coverage out of a foundation without having to cake it on. I don't like ones that are medium that you can build up kind of sorta. This one is a true, I would say, full coverage. Now what full coverage means to me versus what full coverage means to someone else might be different, but to me this is a full coverage foundation. This is a photo friendly foundation. It has no sunscreen in it. It makes it so that you can actually take photographs. You're not going to have that white ghost face. That's just not cute. Now, one of the claims of this foundation is that it has a color correcting technology. I think that's kind of a bogus claim just because isn't that what all foundation technically is like color correcting your skin? I don't really know. One thing I did notice is that all the shades tend to have a little bit more of a yellow tone to them. I don't have any swatches of all the foundations, but when I was trying them on the store, even the ones that were more pink toned tend to have a little bit of a yellow tone. Mont Blanc is the shade that I use, and this is supposed to be one of the more pink toned colors. It still has a little bit of a yellow tone to it. So I think maybe that's where the color correction comes in, where they're trying to reduce redness in the skin, which is usually the most common problem for people with foundation. Or not the problem with foundation, but the thing they're trying to fix with the foundation. The next claim I want to talk about is that they say that it lasts for 16 hours. And I actually think that's true, but it doesn't look exactly the same from, you know, hour 1 to hour 16. What I have noticed is that this foundation looks great from when I put it on to when I do take it off, which is at the maximum usually 10 hours. I usually am just dying to take my makeup off, get my contacts out, the whole 9 yards. So that has nothing to do with the foundation. That just is me wanting to let my skin breathe and everything. One thing I've noticed is that the way that it wears, I really, really love. The foundation does not settle into pores. It doesn't make my skin look dry. It doesn't drag on dry spots. So as it wears throughout the day, it does start to get a little bit glowy. Unlike some other foundations that tend to like get really like oily and separating on my skin where it starts to look kind of funky, this one lasts beautifully on the skin, and it did start to have a glow, but in a way that just looked really luminous. What I don't like is when a foundation has that glowy look where the foundation looks like it's separating from your skin because it's mixing with the oil in your skin. This one does not do that. This one just gives you that beautiful glow. You can blot it away if you want or add a little powder to take down the shine, but it doesn't give you that gross look. One thing that I also really like about this is that it doesn't attach itself to dry patches. That is one of my biggest problems. I have very dry areas around my mouth. I have dry areas in between my eyebrows, and for a foundation to have wonderful coverage, feel so light in texture, and to not grab onto those dry places, it's killer. The last claim of this foundation, they say you can use just one pump. I haven't really found that to be exactly true. I typically have to use 2, although I do have some left over. I do have to use 2 pumps. I gotta like train myself to do 1 and then like a little baby half one, and then I'll probably find the perfect amount. Now I like to use this with a Beauty Blender sponge or the Real Technique sponge. Either one works pretty much the same. If you haven't seen my review comparing these two, I'll go ahead and have a link to that in the description bar down below. But anyway, when I use these, I do find that they do suck up a little bit of the foundation, but I am also going for a more full coverage with them, so I make sure I really squeeze the water out of these before I use them. If you want a more medium coverage, you can leave a little bit more water in them when you use a sponge like this. Now the other brushes I've tried with this have been the Maracuja Miracle Brush from Tarte. This is a really great foundation brush, but I'm not sure if you can just buy this. I haven't been able to find it on the Tarte site. I don't know if it's just available with that kit that I was sent. I don't know. And then the other brush that I tried with this that I really liked is from IT Cosmetics. It's the 302 Velvet Luxe LBD foundation brush. This one is fantastic. It gives a great blend. I did find with the brushes I had to blend a little bit more, but that's just kind of true for any kind of foundation versus using the Beauty Blender, which it's like so easy. But I was really happy to find that this worked well with brushes as well. In fact, if anything, gave me a little bit more of a full coverage look. So with that said, I really like this foundation because it doesn't feel gross on my skin. In fact, it feels like I have almost nothing on. It feels just like I just put a little bit of powder on over my moisturizer. I love that. It has a nice fluid texture. In fact, you can hear it when I mix it up. It's very liquidy, which is something that I love. It makes it spread beautifully. It makes it so you can get that more sheer coverage out of it. It doesn't feel heavy or creamy or cakey or like your skin can't breathe through it. I also want to mention though that you want to make sure to shake it vigorously before you use it. I did try using it once without doing that. I just forgot, and it was a little bit darker in color, so you want to remix it a little bit before each use. Not a problem. In fact, they actually say shake well on the back. I'm going to be showing you guys a demo of me applying this foundation in just a moment, but before we do that, I just want to talk briefly about the powder. This is the light reflecting powder. This is $36 for 0.24 ounces or 7 grams, however you want to look at it. This is also sold in a loose version, but this is not a review of the loose version because loose and pressed powders tend to act a little bit differently. I love this powder because it's basically textureless and colorless. Let me go ahead and show you guys. I just put that on my finger and you can maybe see like a hint of white, but you really can't feel it. It just makes your skin feel silky when you touch it. It has a gorgeously just refined texture, almost like the Emperor's New Clothes, where it looks like there's almost nothing to it. When I'm putting it on my skin, it doesn't make my skin look cakey. It just sort of lightly blurs imperfections and makes my skin look velvety but not quite matte. Almost like a blurring tool where you can still see the skin through it, but it's giving me that velvet finish, but it's not overly matte either. You can see right now I have a little bit of glow to the skin. I did not apply highlighter today, just so you guys can see how it does give me a nice soft natural type of glow. Whether that's coming from the powder or the foundation, I'm not entirely sure. I do believe this combination in particular works well together, but I do think that this gives you the luminous finish and this doesn't cancel it out, but it does set. This is great as a powder to kind of control oil throughout the day because this one doesn't give you any texture. So it's going to take down that shine, it's going to absorb the oil, but it's not going to look cakey and overly heavy. It's not going to give you like that thick mask look. That can even happen sometimes with my favorite MAC Mineralized Skin Finish. I love this stuff, but because it's colored and it has a little bit more of like a talc texture, this one can look a little cakey if I apply it over, you know, oily, shiny skin. Whereas this one, because it has almost no texture, it gives you that refined finish again without adding a whole bunch of gunk on your face. So let me go ahead and show you guys my demo of applying this and also how I did like my blush and stuff, and we'll go ahead and roll that and I will meet you guys at the end. So to get started today, I've already prepped my skin with my moisturizer. I use the CeraVe AM as well as the CeraVe Eye Cream. Those are just my go-to favorites. Obviously, you're going to use whatever works for you. Every time I've worn this so far, I have tried this out using the Hourglass Veil Primer, which is a primer I use with any foundation when I'm testing it out because this is kind of like an optimal situation versus like using maybe another primer where I could maybe blame any problems on that primer. This one pretty much works well with everybody, so it's a good one to use to kind of test out a foundation. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on my little Petri dish. I actually get questions about this fairly often. This is just a metal Petri dish. blush. You can find them on like Amazon, or maybe, I don't really know. A friend gave this to me, but that's what I use as a palette. And go ahead and pounce a little bit of that on a beauty blender, and I'll apply that to my skin. I do this with the beauty blender because it layers the product on the beauty blender as well as on my skin. You could also use your fingers to apply this. Just felt like being fancy today. Make sure I get a little bit of that under the eyes as well. And now that I have my primer on, I'm going to go ahead and use the NARS foundation. Now, the shade that I use is Mont Blanc, which is light 2. I did try Siberia, which was just like shockingly white, so that one's definitely not one that would work for me. But Gobi was also kind of close, but a little too yellow. Now, this one comes with the pump, so what they recommend is 1 pump. Now, this is what 1 pump gives me. It's just not quite enough, so I do 2 pumps. It's totally optional. You obviously want to use however much, you know, works for you. One thing I do is I kind of spread it out a little bit so that it's not just like all globbed in one spot. Then I'll grab it on the beauty blender and pounce it around a little bit to get it evenly distributed on the bottom. I know it does kind of look like it's concentrated, but it is pretty spread out. And then I'll start pouncing that all over my face. Similar to how I would apply most foundations, really. And as I'm putting this on, you're not really seeing a bunch of foundation go on, you're just really watching imperfections disappear. It's pretty cool. When it comes to places like my nose, what I like to do is like sort of press the beauty blender kind of roughly in there to deposit product, and then I'll take the corner to sort of blend it out, the excess. Make sure I get that really good in my hairline, since my forehead is a little bit lighter than this foundation and definitely not as yellow. I'm gonna make sure I really get that nice and covered. And then whatever's left over on the sponge, I'll wipe down onto my neck, since my neck is always lighter than whatever foundation I typically use, because when I try to use a foundation that's the same color as my neck, it would be like putting just white on my face and it would never match my chest. And even this looks kind of light compared to my chest. However, if I was to go with something that perfectly matched my chest, it would look like a line of demarcation up here. So it's kind of a little bit of foundation roulette with pale girls or anyone who has a lighter neck than their body and chooses not to tan to make it match or anything like that. The foundation freshly applied before I set it with any kind of foundation or use concealer, or I obviously need it. It looks very naturalistic. It looks like skin. It doesn't really look makeup-y. I could have gone for maybe more full coverage, but this is kind of the amount of coverage that I like. So let me go ahead and do my concealing. So for concealer, I like the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. So I'm going to start out by taking Vanilla first, or no, wait, Chantilly. So I use Chantilly as a highlight, like in, the high planes, like my nose, my chin, under the eye a little bit. But under the eye, I also mix it in with vanilla a bit, because if I just did Chantilly, it's much too light, obviously. And if I did vanilla on its own, it's a little too deep. So I just mix the two together and it's my perfect shade. But I'm not going to mix it together on the nose and on the chin because I'm using that as a highlighting kind of thing. And to blend that out, I'm just going to use my beauty blender. Kind of dab it on, soften it out. So what I do for my under eye is I pinch the beauty blender like this to make it a little bit flatter. Just go in and pounce that concealer in. And the colors will just blend together as you're blending it into the skin. I'd like to, after I've done all that, go over the under eye with my finger just to make sure it's not creasing, because I have lines naturally under my eye. They're not like wrinkles or anything, they're just natural lines under my eyes. And just to make sure the concealer isn't settling into those. Now I'm going to take the NARS powder in Crystal Translucent. And this is the Maracuja Miracle Foundation brush from Tarte. I really love this little guy. So I'm going to rub that in my powder. And then I will bounce it on my skin to set. And this powder has no color, it has virtually no texture. You can see it just sort of matted out the skin and makes it look a little more perfect compared to the set. In fact, let's go ahead and I will set one whole side of my face and we'll zoom in. This powder is actually so light, you can even set your under eye with it. So here is the side that I have already set with the powder, and this is the side that I haven't yet. Now I think I actually have a little bit of redness and texture down here that I don't have on this side naturally, just post-acne scarring and things like that. But still, you can see the texture-wise how the powder improves the skin. Okay, then to finish that up, I'm going to do my normal contouring stuff. So this is a Sigma F84 Kabuki. Beat your bones. Okay, I don't really feel the need to do a highlighting product today, but I'm going to do some blush. This is that new Tarte blush I got last week. Let's put that right here. Oh no, I touched some of the, do you see this? I touched some of the eyeshadow. Okay. Don't panic, it's okay. And it's fixed. Wonderful. Great, okay. I'm not going to use this brush anymore just in case it has any of that left over on it. So instead I'm just going to use this one from Wayne Goss. Pick up some of the blush, put it on the apple of my cheek and work it back. So now that you've seen how these two apply, I want to see any questions from you guys. Do you have any additional questions about the foundation or powder? I would be happy to answer those for you guys in my upcoming monthly favorites video, so go ahead and leave those for me in the comment section down below. And I think that's basically it for this video. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I will see you guys in my next video. Remember to make good choices and just be yourself. See you, bye, 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 bye.